Today I wanted to show you guys how to set up a shrimp tank. Setting up a tank is actually really easy and there are really many ways to do it. The method I'm going to show you today is from McDonnell, and he had posted this a while ago, and I use this on all of my newer tanks and it's just worked out really well for me. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So you are going to need a couple of things to set up your tank. These first three items are all Borneo Wild products that go underneath your substrate. So the first is the Borneo Wild Minerax, Borneo Wild Enlive, and Borneo Wild Bebi. You're also going to need the substrate itself, and depending on the type of shrimp you keep, the substrate is going to vary. If you keep Taiwan bees or crystal reds or crystal blacks, those are in the Caridina family, and those prefer softer acidic water, so you're going to need an active substrate, and the most popular ones are ADA, Brightwell, Fluval Stratum, Contrasoil. I'm sure there's a lot of different ones that you can use, but it has to be an active substrate that will lower your pH. I am going to be keeping royal blues in this tank, and tigers, and the Neocaridina species, which are like cherry shrimp, yellows, blue diamond, blue pearls, those kind of shrimp. They prefer more neutral water, so I'm not going to be using an active substrate in here. For this tank, I'm going to be using an inert substrate, which just means that the substrate doesn't really change the chemistry of the water. So for this tank, I'm going to be using a combination of Eco Complete and white gravel to cap it. So the first thing you want to do is dose a light layer of Borneo Wild Minerax, which is just a natural mineral that improves your water quality and encourages activation and growth of bacteria in the substrate and water. Next, you'll want to sprinkle over that the Borneo Wild Enlive, which is a culture of 100 types of bacteria that are going to help seed and kickstart your biological filter. Next, you're going to top that off with Borneo Wild Bebi, which is normally a baby shrimp food, but in this case, it's going to act as a source of food for the bacteria. So now that you've got this bottom layer down, you can go ahead and start adding your substrate. If you're going to be doing a planted tank with rooted plants, you're going to want at least 2 inches of substrate so that the roots can grow out and establish themselves. But if you're just going to be doing mosses and decorations, you don't have to worry about having 2 inches of substrate. You can get away with just doing 1. So now you're going to add your remineralized RO water. And you're going to want to use something that is going to help disperse the force of the water going into the tank. So in this case, I am going to be using this really cute little bunny plate. And some people use like plastic bags or, I don't know, cups to help disperse the water. It doesn't really matter as long as you have something where the water isn't going to hit your substrate directly. So once you put this in the tank, I'm pouring it straight into the tank and onto the plate from a bucket. But if you're using an active substrate, you don't want to do that. You want to actually use like an airline tubing or something small that will kind of drip your water in so that it doesn't disturb the active substrate. The only reason I am dumping it in is because it's gravel and it's not really going to get messed up because I've already washed it. With an active substrate, I also want to note you do not want to wash it. You don't want to wash it. You don't want to rinse it. Just dump it straight into the tank and then start filling it up. So again, with an active substrate, you want to slowly drip the water in onto something that will disperse the force of the water so that the substrate doesn't get disturbed and so you don't get cloudy water. With the remineralized RO, the instructions recommend you use salty shrimp GH+, which is perfectly all right. I've used it before and it works fine. What I didn't like about it is that the measurements can be kind of off because you measure it in a little cup. And because of that, I switched over to MK Breed Blue Diamond, which I like a lot more because it's in liquid form. So you don't have to wait for like granules to dissolve, but also I can get way more accurate measurements using the liquid form than just measuring out a scoop. But anyway, You're going to want to set your TDS to about 150 because as the substrate matures, it is going to go down to 130, which is where you want your TDS to be if you are going to be doing any Caridina species like the Taiwan bees, the crystal reds, or blacks. But if you're doing neos or tigers, they actually prefer a higher TDS of about 200. Alrighty, now that your tank is filled up, you can now add the hardscape and the plants. And in this tank, I am using Ochre stone, but you want to pick something that is not going to change your water chemistry. I know there are some rocks and hardscapes out there that can raise your pH or KH or GH or TDS, and you don't want any of that. So a couple of good types of hardscapes would be driftwood, spiderwood, lava rock, and any of those like decorative ornaments that you can buy at the pet store. As far as plants go, shrimp do well in all sorts of plant setups. So you can do low tech, medium tech, high tech, it doesn't matter. But if you pick one of these setups, you want to stick with the plants that work for those setups. So if you're going to go low tech, pick plants that do well in low light. If you do high tech, pick plants that do well in high light. You don't want to mix the two together because you're going to have issues with algae. Now, one thing to note about CO2 is I feel like it is more for experienced hobbyists because there is a myth that's been going around saying that, CO2 is bad for shrimp. CO2 kills shrimp. It's not the CO2 itself that can kill the shrimp or hinder their development or prevent breeding. It's actually the regulation of that CO2 in your tank. So if you leave the CO2 on for too long or overnight, the CO2 will actually cause the pH to drop dramatically. And that's actually what kills the shrimp. It's not the CO2 itself. So if you're going to do a high-tech setup, just be very careful with your CO2. Turn it on an hour before your lights turn on, and then turn it off an hour before your lights turn off. It'd also be a really good idea to get a bubble counter or CO2 indicator so that you can monitor the levels of CO2 in your tank. So after you set up your tank, you're going to want to add some shrimp essentials. And the next two items are actually listed on the instructions to add into your tank. And the first one is the Borneo Wild Minerock, and this is like a solid version of the Minerax that was added into the tank before. It has the same qualities in that it helps to improve the water quality and grow the beneficial bacteria, but it also helps with molting and breeding. You don't have to get the Borneo Wild brand of minerock. There's a lot of different types of mineral rocks out there. For this tank, I am going to be using this kind, which is the Ebiken Ku Yang. It's not the exact same as the Borneo Wild minerock, but it does release beneficial minerals into the water that the shrimp need. The next item you want to get are the Borneo Wild bee balls, which are little tiny gray balls that help to purify your water. And you want to add 2 bee balls for every gallon of water, and they last up to 2 years in your tank. The most important thing that you want to have in your tanks is leaf litter, and especially Indian almond leaves, because these grow biofilm on the leaves for your shrimp to eat, but the shrimp also eat the leaves as they break down. And other leaves you can add to the tank are mulberry leaves, banana leaves, amaranth leaves. Shrimp love all sorts of leaves. So make sure you have at least a few in your tank for them to constantly graze on. Another item that grows biofilm for shrimp to eat is challah. And challah is really versatile because you can stack them on top of each other. You can plant them in the substrate and make them a tree. You can attach plants to them. So you can really do a lot of things with chala wood, which is why they go great in shrimp tanks. And the last thing you want to make sure you have in your tanks are alder cones. And alder cones, again, are another great source for biofilm for your shrimp. And what's nice about them is that they take a really long time to break down, and even when they do break down, you don't have to take them out of the tank. But you want to be really careful with how many alder cones you put in your tank, because they do color the water, and if you put too many, they will reduce the pH. Usually I just add 1 per gallon of water. Of course, the last thing you want to do in setting up any tank is cycle it. So for cycling, I prefer to use Dr. Tim's ammonium chloride solution because it is really easy. You just have to basically put in 2 drops per gallon of water to get an ammonia reading of 4 parts per million. And that will provide enough ammonia for your beneficial bacteria to build up a sizable colony to filter your water. So yeah, there it is. That's pretty much how you set up a shrimp tank. It is super, super easy. And if you guys have any questions at all about where I got the products or just about the method in general, please leave a comment below. I always try to respond within 24 hours. And just a little announcement, I did hit 1,000 subscribers, which is such an accomplishment for me because I just never thought that this could happen. So to celebrate, I am going to be doing a giveaway for some awesome products. I'm going to be doing a shrimp starter pack. So just a couple of things that every shrimp keeper pretty much needs or has in their shrimp tanks. And I did also order a couple of other things that I'm going to include in the giveaway as well. And on top of that, bypetshrimp.com has agreed to do a little goodie bag for the giveaway. So that will include a bunch of stuff that you can actually get on bypetshrimp.com. So make sure you visit there. I will post another video later on this week to go into more detail about what's going in the giveaway. So stay tuned for that. And if you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.